Greetings, denizens of the Empire. It's Jabari here. Gold is perhaps the most universally desired material in world history. This is perhaps because of the following. It is rare enough to be difficult for most people to obtain, it does not react with other elements and thus retains its appearance indefinitely, and perhaps most important of all, it has a natural, beautiful, unwavering, and unique appearance. As a result, this metal was used by nearly every world culture that had access to it as currency or a symbol of wealth or spirituality, and directly led to some of the richest and most powerful people and nations. Historically, West Africa has been perhaps the most important supplier of the world's gold economy, and even today, it still remains a prominent figure in this market. Despite this, the only time we really hear about West Africa's wealth in gold, it typically starts and ends in the 13th century Malian ruler Mansa Musa. And even worse still, most discussions of wealth generated from West Africa often primarily focuses on the exploits of the transatlantic slave trade. However, these two events don't even scratch the surface of West Africa's rich and complex economic history. Today, we will explore the history of this rare and precious metal that dominated West Africa's history. Since gold is a metal that is unreactive, it does not decompose like iron or copper, both of which are susceptible to corrosion from oxidation. However, despite this, gold is a rare material, so it is often melted down and recycled, so it typically only survives in places like undisturbed graves of royalty. With that being said, it is difficult to determine when gold metallurgy first began in sub-Saharan Africa, and unlike the rest of the world, the oldest evidence of ironworking actually predates gold metallurgy in most of sub-Saharan Africa. The earliest written mention of gold in West Africa dates back to the 5th century BCE. Hanno the Navigator, a Carthaginian of unknown status with some accounts referring to him as the king of the Carthaginians, his objective was to venture past the Pillars of Hercules and explore the coast of Africa to found new cities. On behalf of the Kingdom of Carthage, he led an expedition which consisted of 60 ships of 50 oars each and a total of 30,000 people, including men, women, and plenty of provisions to supply them all. While it is not known exactly how far down the African coast that this voyage extended, estimates place it as close as present-day southern Morocco and as distant as modern-day Gabon. However, it is very likely that this expedition had at least bypassed the Sahara, as gorillas were recorded to have been observed and even captured during this voyage. Gorillas are forest-dwelling primates, which means they would not have been found in the deserts or grasslands. The humans encountered in these lands were described as Ethiopians, a common Greek word at the time used to describe all black Africans, with Ethiopia loosely translating to Land of the Burnt Faces, and a name that was adopted later by the modern-day East African country. These Ethiopians were also described as speaking a language so different from that of the Carthaginians that neither them or the interpreters could understand. As a result of this, the first ever recorded instance of the silent barter or dumb bargain took place between the Carthaginians and the Ethiopians, in which gold was the commodity offered by the latter. If you'd like to learn more about the silent barter, be sure to check out the video that I recently made describing it in detail. I will leave a link to it at the end screen. In summary, however, the silent barter is an ancient method of trade developed by Africans, in which trade goods were deposited in a remote and neutral location by one party, and the same was done by the other party. These actions were taken separately as not to interact directly with one another. This process was repeated until both parties were satisfied with the quantity of goods offered. Once this point was reached, the satisfactory quantity was taken away, and then the other party would return later and take their share as well. The silent barter between Carthage and West Africans is the oldest known record of gold trade taking place directly between West Africa and the Mediterranean world. This is significant as it shows that the value of gold was already well established and appreciated in both of these diverse regions by at least 500 BCE, if not much earlier. The second oldest documentation of gold trade in sub-Saharan Africa comes from the numerous ambiguous and questionable writings that describe alleged major incursions into sub-Saharan Africa by Roman legions. One such example comes from Roman writer Marinus of Tyre from the late 1st century CE and Claudius of Ptolemy. They report that Governor Septimus Flaccus led a campaign from Libya all the way across the kingdom of the Garamantes, continuing deep into Africa on a 3-month-long trek until reaching the land of the Ethiopians. Another account describes Julius Maternus leading another march south from Leptis Magna, but this time in the company of the king of the Garamantes. His journey is said to have taken even longer, at 4 months. Once the land of the Ethiopians was reached, many rhinoceroses were seen. A massive lake and a massive river full of hippos and crocodiles were also described, leading many scholars to believe that the places mentioned in these writings were located at what are now the Niger or Senegal river systems and Lake Chad, though much debate still exists. It is also worth noting that at this time in history, the Sahara, though still a desert, was a much wetter place, so it is plausible that there could have been other lakes and rivers in locations closer to Rome that have long since dried up in the present day. Ptolemy's map clearly distinguishes between Europe, Asia, Libya, with Libya being the name the Romans used for Africa at the time, and most notably, Ethiopia was also shown, specifying the lands south of the Sahara inhabited by black people. The map also includes the edges of the known world, which are visibly labeled as terra incognita, the Latin word for unknown lands, of which much of Ethiopia exists within these realms. Crucially, however, you can see rivers depicted on this map, with the one to the east unquestionably portraying the Great Nile, while those in the west have an eerie resemblance to the Niger and Senegal river systems, indicative of knowledge of at least part of sub-Saharan West Africa. Many other accounts exist of these Roman expeditions throughout history, some of which contain fanciful descriptions of trans-Saharan Roman gold trade routes. However, no evidence exists to support this occurring with any level of frequency or consistency. However, some credence to these accounts can be found in the form of some Roman coins and bracelets found in West Africa. I just want to briefly shout out Happy Hippo Herbals for making this video possible. Happy Hippo Herbals is a provider of numerous alternative medicine products, some of which I use regularly to help me stay focused and feel less anxious in my daily life. If you use my referral link or referral code FN10, you can receive a 15% discount on all Happy Hippo Herbals products. Go to fromnothing.info/market for my affiliate link and for links to other partners that I've worked with in the past. The Ghana Empire is West Africa's oldest known empire. It was first described in writing by Islamic Persian polymath Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi in around the year 830 CE. Islamic merchants who visited the region often described it as the land of gold, and for good reason. Ghana was so rich in gold, in fact, that it had to be tightly regulated by the king, who strategically controlled its price in a simple yet highly effective manner. He placed a tax on all gold mining, requiring that any and all gold nuggets be directly turned in to him. The general population within his empire was only permitted to use gold dust in exchanges. This not only made him fabulously wealthy, but it also kept the price of gold in check and free from inflation of prices. In fact, 11th century Arab writer al-Bakri claimed that the king's gold nuggets could weigh anywhere between a few ounces and a pound, and that one of these nuggets was even the size of a very large stone. He further details the fabulous wealth within the Empire of Ghana in this vibrant excerpt. All other people wear robes of cotton, silk, or brocade according to their means. All of them shave their beards, and women shave their heads. The king adorns himself like a woman round his neck and on his forearms, and he puts on a high cap decorated with gold and wrapped in a turban of fine cotton. He sits in audience or to hear grievances against officials in a domed pavilion around which stand 10 horses covered with gold embroidered materials. Behind the king stand 10 pages holding shields and swords decorated with gold, and on his right are the sons of the vassal kings of his country, wearing splendid garments and their hair plaited with gold. The governor of the city sits on the ground before the king, and around him are ministers seated likewise. At the door of the pavilion are dogs of excellent pedigree, who hardly ever leave the place where the king is, guarding him. Round their necks they wear collars of gold and silver studded with a number of balls of the same metals. Between the 15th and 20th centuries, Europeans, for the first time in history, began to travel to West Africa directly, without interference from Muslim middlemen. Many of these explorers described fanciful encounters of rich and powerful African kings, with beautiful cities and incalculable wealth in gold. The king of Guyamon, a kingdom that existed in the northwestern region of what is now the modern-day country of Ghana, had a fabulous capital based in the city of Bonduku. 18th century English traveler Bowdish described the king's chambers having steps forged of solid gold by which he ascended his bed. The Ashanti people, who would later conquer Guyamon and other gold-bearing regions, were known for adorning themselves in incalculable quantities of gold ornaments, a practice that the Ashanti royalty continues to the present day. The Dagomba kingdom, which controlled the lands to the northeast of the Ashanti and would later be conquered by them as well, were described as having even more gold, with some of their ornaments weighing in excess of 63 pounds or 23 kilograms. Adjusted for 2023 prices, a pure gold object of that size would be worth nearly 1.5 million US dollars today. The overwhelming wealth and gold of this region earned it the nickname the Gold Coast, a name that it retained for the duration of its time as a British colony. It is also known that the source of large amounts of the wealth of the Mali Empire and its fabled Mansa Musa can directly be tracked back to this region of Africa, and in fact, one of Mali's emperors personally occupied the city of Bonduku for several years in an effort to ensure and oversee a consistent supply of gold to his trade caravans. To the present day, Ghana continues to be among the top producing gold regions in the world, only behind the much larger and more wealthy countries of the United States, Canada, China, Russia, and Australia. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. For sources, check out my website, linked below. If you'd like to support future projects, you can do so there as well, or by clicking the join button below, or by becoming a patron. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching as usual, and always remember, we don't come from nothing.